He thought his pool was safe, until he found wet footprints leading through his unlocked gate. Jake had always looked forward to summer evenings by his pool, his quiet refuge after long days of work. Nestled behind his modest suburban home, the blue water sparkled under the warm sun, inviting and calm. The gentle hum of the neighborhood faded as he stepped out onto the concrete patio, ready for a peaceful swim. That afternoon started like any other, the smell of freshly cut grass, birds singing in the trees, and distant laughter drifting from neighbors. Jake grabbed his towel and sunglasses and headed out, but as he crossed the yard he froze. There, on the smooth concrete, were small wet footprints, bare, dripping. Not his. His heart sank. The pool ladder was still slightly rocking, water rippling from recent movement. Nearby, a pair of tiny flip-flops lay abandoned beside a flower bed. Jake's phone buzzed. A message from his neighbor across the street. "Hey, did you know Karen's kids were swimming in your pool again?" Jake's jaw tightened. Karen Wilkins, a name that had become a thorn in his side, was the neighborhood's loudest voice for entitlement and boundary pushing. Her two boys, Braxton and the younger one no one quite knew the name of, seemed to have free reign over everyone's property, especially Jake's. He locked the gate again, this time with a new, heavy padlock. Later, he printed a large, bold sign and taped it to the fence. "Private property, no trespassing, pool for residents only." The next day, Karen showed up with her boys in tow. "Oh, Jake," she said with a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We were just cooling off the kids. Your pool looked so inviting." Jake held up the sign firmly. "This is private property, Karen. You and your kids can't just come in here whenever you want." Karen chuckled. "It's just a pool, Jake. The neighborhood kids all use it sometimes. You don't have to be so uptight." Jake's patience thinned. "I'm serious. This is trespassing. Please respect my property." Karen rolled her eyes. "Whatever, Jake. I'm not going to start a war over a few splashes." She left with her kids, but Jake knew it was only the beginning. That night, Jake sat at his computer and pulled up the security footage. Braxton and the younger boy slipped through the gate, laughing and diving into the water like it was theirs. Just beyond the frame, Karen watched nearby, sipping coffee as if it were normal to let her children trespass. Jake clenched his jaw. This wasn't about a pool anymore. It was about respect, about boundaries, about control. And Karen had crossed the line. The next days were a blur of sleepless nights and security upgrades. Jake installed new cameras, bolstered his locks, and posted bigger "no trespassing" signs. But Karen ignored them all. One afternoon, Jake caught her kids splashing again, Karen standing close with a smug smile. He confronted her. "This is trespassing. I've told you to stop." Karen laughed. "You're ridiculous. The kids just want to play." Jake warned he'd call the HOA and police if it happened again. Karen scoffed, leaving with a threat. "You're just a power-hungry neighbor trying to ruin summer." Then, the confrontation spiraled. One Sunday, Jake came home to find the gate wide open. Karen was lounging on his pool float sipping sparkling wine while her kids cannonballed off the edge. "You're trespassing," Jake shouted. "Get out or I call the cops." Karen smirked. "It's just a pool. You're so uptight." Jake called police. They issued a formal warning. Karen ranted about community and sharing, but the law was clear. Karen wasn't done. She plastered protest signs, rallied neighbors on Facebook, and spread rumors about Jake harassing her family. Jake stayed quiet but kept fortifying. He hired a fence company for a tall, secure barrier, installed motion-sensing sprinklers and thermal cameras. Then came the final act. Late one night, Jake returned to find his gate cut, lights smashed, and his pool vandalized. Dyed pink and blue, inflatables shredded, spray painted on the wall, pool for all. Jake called police, uploaded the footage to Reddit. The community exploded. Karen was fined, issued a restraining order, and moved out. Jake named his new security system KAREN, the Kinetic Aware Response Entry Neutralizer. He finally enjoyed peaceful summer nights. But sometimes, before bed, he glanced at the cameras and whispered, "Pool's closed. Forever." It's failed. Jake knew he had to protect his home by any means, even if it meant raising the stakes. After the unsettling discovery of wet footprints and the unwanted swim, Jake's quiet life had been invaded. The peace he once found in his backyard was now shattered by repeated trespasses and an escalating neighborhood feud he never wanted. The next morning, Jake awoke to the relentless buzzing of his phone. Messages flooded in from neighbors, some sympathizing, others choosing sides in the growing conflict. Among the chatter, Karen's name was everywhere, as she spun the story to paint herself the victim, accusing Jake of being a cold, controlling neighbor with a camera obsession. But Jake was done talking. He knew words weren't enough anymore. First, Jake installed a new set of high-definition security cameras, covering every angle of his yard, the gate, and especially the pool area. The cameras had night vision and motion detection, sending alerts directly to his phone. He even set up cloud backups, ensuring no footage could be deleted or lost. Next, he reinforced the gate with heavy vertical steel rods, making climbing or tampering much harder. He taped fresh, "Private property, no trespassing" signs, bigger and bolder than before, directly on the fence and gate. To add a psychological deterrent, Jake placed a professional-looking "guard dog on premises" sign, despite owning no dog at all. Each step was a silent message. This pool was off limits. But Karen wasn't deterred. A week after the new signs went up, Jake received a text from another neighbor. Karen's kids were swimming again today. And guess who was watching from the driveway? Yep, Karen. Jake checked his phone as his heart sank. The footage from his cameras showed the unmistakable figures of Braxton and his brother slipping through the gate, laughter echoing as they jumped in the water. Nearby, Karen stood with arms crossed, sipping coffee, looking unbothered. Jake's fingers clenched around his phone. It was trespassing, clear as day. Determined to confront the situation once and for all, Jake marched over to Karen's house later that afternoon. She answered the door with her usual smirk, as if she'd been expecting him. "Jake, what a surprise," she said sarcastically. He took a deep breath, trying to keep his temper in check. "I need you to stop letting your kids use my pool. This is private property. You've been warned." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, come on. It's just a pool. Kids need to have fun. You're being ridiculous." Jake held up his phone, showing her the footage. "This is trespassing. If it happens again, I'll have to call the HOA and the police." Karen scoffed. "You can't be serious. The neighborhood is for everyone." Jake shook his head. "It's not a public pool. Please respect that." Karen slammed the door. Later that day, Jake posted in the neighborhood's Facebook group, "To all neighbors, please respect private property. My pool is not public, and trespassing will not be tolerated." Almost immediately, Karen posted back, "This isn't about property. It's about community. Kids should be allowed to play and cool off in the heat. Shame on anyone who tries to ruin summer fun." The comment ignited a firestorm. Supporters rallied behind Karen, calling Jake a narcissistic control freak and accusing him of trying to ruin neighborhood spirit. Jake ignored the digital attacks. Social media wasn't his battleground. That night, as Jake reviewed the security footage again, he noticed something chilling. The gate latch was slightly loose, as if someone was trying to force it open. He secured it again, adding a secondary lock. But deep down, Jake knew the situation was escalating. One Saturday afternoon, Jake arrived home to find his gate wide open again. His blood ran cold. There, lounging on one of his pool chairs, was Karen, glass of wine in hand, sun hat tilted to shade her eyes. Her boys splashed in the water, shrieking with delight. "Karen!" Jake shouted. She didn't flinch. "It's just a pool, Jake. You're so uptight." He took a step forward. "You're trespassing. Get out now or I'm calling the police." Karen smiled sweetly. "Go ahead. I'm not scared of you." Jake called the police. When officers arrived, They issued a formal trespassing warning to Karen, but the damage was done. The battle lines were drawn. Karen posted in the Facebook group again. "Beware the neighbor with the cameras. He's watching our kids like a creep, ready to call the cops if they breathe wrong." Neighbors began choosing sides. Some felt sympathy for Karen's cause. Others supported Jake's right to protect his property. But the summer that was meant to be peaceful was now a war zone. Still, Jake didn't relent. He hired a fence company to build a tall, secure steel barrier, added motion-sensing sprinklers that soaked anyone who dared approach without permission, installed thermal cameras that sent alerts in the dead of night. He named his new fortress system with a touch of dark humor, KAREN, the Kinetic Aware Response Entry Neutralizer. The final chapter in this suburban saga was yet to come, but Jake was ready. When words failed and warnings went unheard, the battle for the backyard pool exploded into chaos. Summer was in full swing, but the tension in Jake's neighborhood was thicker than the heat. Despite the new signs, cameras, and the looming fence, Karen and her kids kept pushing boundaries. Every day seemed to bring a new challenge, a test of wills that Jake never wanted but now had no choice but to face head-on. One Sunday afternoon, Jake returned from a quick grocery run to a sight that made his blood boil. The gate was wide open. Inside, Karen lounged on his bright blue pool float, sunglasses shading her eyes, and a half-empty glass of sparkling wine perched delicately in her hand. Her boys cannonballed into the water with wild abandon, splashing and shrieking like the pool belonged to them. Jake's heart pounded. "Karen, what the hell are you doing in my pool?" he barked, stepping toward the water's edge. Karen lifted her sunglasses and gave him a slow, smug smile. "It's just a pool, Jake. Relax. The neighborhood's kids all use it." Jake's voice shook with anger. "This is trespassing. You're not welcome here. Get out before I call the police." Karen's smile curled into a sneer. "Call the cops, Jake. Let's see if they agree with you." He pulled out his phone and dialed. Within minutes, flashing blue and red lights painted the quiet street. The officers approached cautiously as Karen greeted them with practiced charm. Jake showed the footage he'd captured, Karen and her boys entering the pool area without permission, ignoring the signs, and repeatedly crossing the line. The officers spoke firmly with Karen and warned her to stay off Jake's property. Karen grumbled as she packed up her things, but the warning was clear. Any further trespassing would result in legal action. The confrontation seemed to cool the conflict, for a day. Then Karen took her fight online. On the neighborhood Facebook group, she posted a dramatic message. "Beware the man with cameras watching our kids like criminals. We just want to let them play and cool off. Is that so wrong?" The post lit a firestorm. Supporters rallied behind her, painting Jake as the neighborhood's fun police. Jake stayed silent online, focusing instead on tightening security. But Karen's persistence turned dangerous. Late one night, Jake received an alert from his thermal camera. A shadow moved near his fence. He grabbed a flashlight and looked outside. Two figures tried to climb over the gate. Jake shouted through the window, "Get off my property." The figures scrambled and fled. The next morning, Jake found the gate's lock had been cut. His security lights were smashed. His pool area was trashed. Inside the pool, neon pink and blue dye swirled. Pool noodles were shredded and strewn across the yard. A plastic lawn flamingo floated upside down, like a grim symbol. Spray painted on the back fence in bright red letters, "Pool for all." Jake stood frozen, heart pounding. He grabbed his phone and called the police. He uploaded every bit of footage, photos, and evidence to Reddit. The subreddit RRR Fuck You Karen exploded overnight. Thousands rallied behind Jake, demanding justice. Some sent him offers for new security equipment. One user created fan art depicting Jake as a knight guarding the pool, wielding a pool skimmer like a sword, while Karen screamed behind bars. The local HOA acted swiftly. Karen was fined heavily for trespassing and property damage. A restraining order was issued. Despite the chaos, Jake didn't celebrate. He poured his energy into rebuilding and securing his sanctuary. The pool was drained, cleaned, repainted. The fence company returned to install a 12-foot black steel fence, topped with spikes and without footholds. Motion-activated sprinklers and thermal sensors were added. He named the new system KAREN, the Kinetic Aware Response Entry Neutralizer. Karen deleted her Facebook account. Within a month, she moved away. The neighborhood slowly returned to peace. But Jake never forgot the battle. Sometimes, on quiet summer nights, he'd glance at the camera feeds, smile, and whisper to himself, "Pool closed. Forever. For her." What began as a simple backyard dispute ended with spray paint, broken lights, and a fortress no one could breach. They thought it was just a neighborhood squabble, a petty dispute over a pool. But when Karen refused to hear no, the summer's quiet peace dissolved into chaos. Jake woke that morning feeling optimistic. After weeks of conflict, the recent security upgrades seemed to be holding. His cameras sent regular alerts, but no unauthorized visitors had been detected for days. He sipped his coffee on the patio, enjoying the sunlight dancing across the pool. But peace was fragile. Late that night, a chilling alert jolted Jake awake. His phone flashed, "Motion detected." He grabbed a flashlight and peered outside. The gate lock had been cut. His floodlights were smashed. Shattered glass littered the driveway. The pool itself was vandalized. Pink and blue dye churned in the water. Pool noodles were ripped to shreds and tossed like confetti, and spray-painted across the wall in jagged red letters were words that made Jake's stomach turn. Pool for all. Jake called the police immediately. Officers arrived quickly, inspecting the damage and collecting evidence. Jake uploaded everything to Reddit, and within hours, the story exploded across social media. The subreddit r/fuck-you-Karen was alive with memes, art, and furious support for Jake. The community rallied behind him like never before. The HOA moved fast. Fines piled up against Karen for trespassing, vandalism, and disorderly conduct. A restraining order forbade her from coming near Jake's property. Her once loyal Facebook group abandoned her. Karen tried to rally support, but the tide had turned. Eventually, she deleted her accounts and quietly moved out. Jake rebuilt his sanctuary. The pool was drained, resurfaced, and refilled with crystal clear water. The fence company returned to install the final piece of security, a 12-foot black steel fence topped with spikes and no footholds. Motion-sensing sprinklers and thermal cameras patrolled every inch. He named his fortress system KAREN, the Kinetic Aware Response Entry Neutralizer. On warm summer nights, Jake still sat by his pool. He grilled, swam, and enjoyed the quiet. But sometimes he glanced at the cameras and whispered to himself, "Pool's closed. Forever." The suburban war was over, but the lesson remained clear. Boundaries matter. Respect is non-negotiable, and some trespasses come with a price.